The digital news tightens around Russia. Your identity and political privileges all conveniently stored in one convenient app. Now, if there are still people that do not believe that Russia is part of the Great Reset, this should be the evidence that puts the nail on the head, hits a nail on the head. This is translated by Edward Slavquest. Russian President Vladimir Putin signed into law on Friday the use of electronic military conscription, as well as the creation of a single registry of all those eligible for military service. Under the newly approved legislation, anyone who submits a summons through a Gossuslugi state service portal, regardless of whether it is actually read, will be prevented from leaving the country until they report to a conscription office. Those suspected of draft evasion can be banned from driving, buying or selling real estate, and taking out loans. Edward Slavquest says, digitization without representation. Russia's Federal Council voted Wednesday to create a single database of men liable for military service. The newly approved law also legalizes the use of electronic military calls through the portal of state services, Gossuslugi. The State Duma, the parliament, unanimously approved the law. The law flashes through the Federal Assembly without any substantive debate before ending up in Putin's desk, so you can understand the type of democracy they have. There is no democracy in Russia. The State Duma unanimously passed the bill in less than 30 minutes, despite the fact that the text was not made available to lawmakers until shortly before they had to vote on it, so they didn't even read it. The hasty, ill-conceived law will lead to more stupidity and social tension, quote-unquote, State Duma Deputy Nina Ostanina wrote in a recent op-ed. To the Ministry of Defense, the conscript is just a draftee, but to a mother he is a son, to a wife he is a husband, and to a child he is a father. It's not clear to me what is planned and why it needs to be introduced now, because the constant failures of the portal of the government services show that this system is imperfect. On April 14, Russia's most popular military news portal, Top War Russia, published a scathing op-ed about the new law, warning that it could open a Pandora's box of corruption, government incompetence, and social unrest. The law has two enemies: the constantly lying state and the citizens' instinct for self-preservation, of course. Coincidentally, just days before the Digital Calling Act was ratified, Russians were told they could no longer delete Gossuslugi from their phones, ostensibly to protect them from hackers. The source is from SimilarWeb. The decision was eventually reversed after a public outcry. Officials stressed that the strange episode had nothing to do with the possibility of a new wave of protests. And meanwhile, the Ministry of Digital Development has submitted a draft law that will allow Russians to use Gossuslugi as a replacement for their domestic paper passports. Source is Nakanuni, Russia. Although not mandatory, Gossuslugi is used by the vast majority of Russians to perform everyday tasks that would otherwise be entangled with daunting bureaucratic red tape. You can even use Gossuslugi to make an appointment for a safe and effective genetic injection. And again, to reiterate, it's just paper, super convenient, and it's what people want. And now under this extremely convenient system, you'll be able to identify yourself with ease and or control at will whether you are allowed to leave the country or sell your home. The digital switch for dignity is already here, and the future is now. This is by Edward Slavquest, the name of Russia-related news. The digital news tightens around Russia. And this is translated for you from a Greek article. What do you think about this? Obviously, we know that Russia is playing the game of WEF. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support, and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.